Mr. Lynch, so in your opinion, do financial systems play a more primary or secondary role in the development, in the economic development of a country? So what comes first? Is it the real economy and then finance, or is it financial capital that drives the economy?
It's a great question, and one that I'm not sure there's an answer which is one or the other, because I think the reality is it has to be both. One without the other is not going to work. So financial services are not an end to themselves, right? If without the real economy, without companies that are producing, that are innovating, that are creating, financial services is nothing, either to the business sector or the consumer sector. But similarly, a real economy where they don't have access to capital, access to liquidity, will not work either. And again, it's another lesson from from Asia Pacific, where when economies were closed, when capital was restricted, it was not moving freely. When there were no public markets, no bond markets, growth was stunted. But the more access to capital, the more liquidity there is, the freer capital can move, the better it is for the real economy and those companies that operate in the real economy.
You've been an independent board member at Ameriabank for more than 2 years now. Can you share a bit with us about the changes in the bank's corporate governance that you've seen over the past 2 years?
So I think Ameriabank, like any corporation, is on a journey. So it starts with an idea and a business plan and a few shareholders who are committed to doing something. And the way those people operate at that stage of development is different from the end state of a listed company. But each stage of the evolution is appropriate for that evolution. So I think that was the first part of it. And then as the success of the bank became evident, it attracted some very, very significant shareholders. So the EBRD, the Asian Development Bank, there is blue chip investors, as you will see. And with their involvement comes a requirement for external board members, external governance, but that's not the end point either, because if you're moving towards a listing, if you're moving towards an IPO where shareholding is disseminated around institutions, then the governance follows that, and an increasing number of independents with their own new and different perspectives. So I don't see it so much as transformation as evolution. And the most important thing is the bank's commitment to that governance, and commitment to best practices, and to making sure there's a robust check and balance, committee structures where board members can ask questions directly and dig in, and provide not just the oversight, but also the strategic input that their experience hopefully allows them to provide.
Right. What do you expect to see from these changes then, or the evolution, so to speak?
I think it will just be, I think the most important thing is actually that the governance structure supports the prudent growth of the bank. It's not something that is brought in externally. People are attracted and have agreed to serve on the board actually because of what is there, because of the quality of management, because of the quality of the business. So the first thing to make sure is that you're not actually getting in the way, that you are supporting what is already there, because what already there is very, very strong. And then helping to contribute again with experience, and the board members come from all over the world, with different experience in private equity, in development institutions, in public market investing, and bringing investment banking, capital markets, and bringing some of that experience to help the bank on its journey. And particularly with the IPO, because that is a big objective and very important to the company, very important to the country, to have people that have been through that process before and have experience of what is needed.
So, as an Ameriabank board member and an expert in your field, of course, what do you think is behind the successes of the bank? Is it its ability to achieve its goals regardless of external environments?
Yeah, I don't think it's regardless of external environment. I mean, obviously, how you navigate a storm, how you navigate sort of choppy waters is very, very important. But the external environment is fundamental as well. But there's also you also have to accept that you can't change the external environment. So for me, it's not about success. Despite that, it's success in the things that the bank can control, and I think that starts with people. And I've been remarkably impressed by the quality of people. I mean, there is world-class talent in the organization, and that is going to drive everything. And then there is ambition, an ambition to be the best, and that means hard work. It also means constantly trying to be better, and that's what Ameria has developed. It is the best bank in the country. It's not just the biggest bank, but its operating practices, its innovation, the digital transformation, it's constantly pushing forward. And then ultimately that has to be reflected in the financials, and growing the size of the bank, taking market share, growing the profitability of the bank, and ultimately the return on equity. And that is what investors want. They want to see high ROE businesses with good growth managed in a prudent fashion.
Now, Ameriabank's been preparing for an IPO for several years now. You've been talking about the growth, the evolution, the changes that you've seen with the bank. What do you think will be the key elements in these changes and in the evolution that will enable the bank to achieve this goal?
So I think the first thing is that we can't decouple the bank from the country. So the bank has a responsibility as the largest bank, and as hopefully the sort of in the vanguard of the opening of the Armenian capital markets to international investors. It has a responsibility, and it will benefit from selling the economic story of the country, which is strong. I mean, if you look at the growth over the last several years, even its ability to navigate 2020, which was a nightmare for everyone, and the forecast growth, all within forecast growth maybe 5 to 7%, something like that. That's hard to achieve, and if you can do that year in, year out, that is a good backdrop. And working with the government, going out and telling that story and educating investors as to the prospects of the country. So that start with that. You then position the bank within that story, where the bank is a proxy for the country and for an investor, the best way to participate in that economic growth, because you get broad exposure to consumers, you get broad exposure to businesses across sectors, and you also get this sort of macroprudential oversight from the central bank and the regulator, which in Armenia's case is actually very strong. So and then you get into, so you start very macro, and then you start drilling down, and then you get into the operating performance, the governance, the shareholders who are there, who are obviously validating the story, and I think it sort of all adds up to something that should be attractive to international investors. And also making sure that we get to sufficient scale, that there is liquidity, and that we are the clear, I don't want to say dominant player, but the clear strongest player in the industry in the country.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.